Hello again, fragile creatures. Tonight's nightmare begins with a maintenance worker opening a student's apartment door, taking one step inside, freezing, and then sprinting back out, vomiting in the grass. If you dare to go further, subscribe and stay close. You'll need the company. Because we're going back to Gainesville, Florida, 1990. A college town hunted by a man who treated the students like prey. A true story so disturbing it later inspired Scream. Let's dive in. It was Sunday, August 26th, 1990. Patricia and Frank Powell were visiting the white three-story apartment complex where their 17-year-old daughter, Christine, had just moved in with her new roommate, 18-year-old Sonia. 2 days earlier, Christine had called home, buzzing with excitement about her new life. Freshman year, independence, a future she could almost touch. She promised to call again. She didn't. The Powells told themselves what every parent tells themselves. She's fine. She's busy. It's college. But as they walked into the stairwell of the building, that reassurance cracked. The door to Christine's apartment was covered in handwritten notes. "Call us when you get in." "Where are you?" Patricia and Frank knocked, called out their daughter's name. Worried now, Patricia and Frank rushed outside and found a maintenance worker. They explained they hadn't heard from their daughter. The door was covered in notes and they needed to get inside right now. But he shook his head immediately. He wasn't allowed to let anyone into an apartment without police present. So he went to get the building manager. She saw how scared the Powells were and said, "Call the police. We can't open that door without them." A few minutes later, one officer showed up. He told the Powells to wait outside and then followed the maintenance worker and the building manager upstairs. Now that police were on scene, the maintenance worker was allowed to unlock the door for them. He stepped inside behind the officer, helping him check the apartment. The living room looked undisturbed, a couch, a TV, a quiet, normal scene. But when the maintenance worker walked around the side of the couch, he froze. Then he screamed, turned, ran down the stairs, out the front entrance, and collapsed in the grass, vomiting violently in front of Christine's parents. No one needed to explain what that meant. Patricia and Frank forced their way inside before the officer could stop them. And what they saw broke them. Christine lay on the floor in front of the couch, unclothed, stabbed. Her body deliberately arranged in a twisted, degrading pose meant to shock whoever found her. Upstairs, the officer found Sonia the same way, stabbed, staged, her innocence stripped twice, once by violence, once by the killer's design. Gainesville's school year hadn't even begun, and already 2 families had been destroyed. Forensics moved quickly. Screwdriver marks on the doorframe, no forced entry beyond that, duct tape residue on Christine's wrists, but no tape left behind. A towel and soap nearby, used to wipe down the crime scene. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't sloppy. This was practiced. But Gainesville didn't know yet that the nightmare had already expanded. Earlier that same day, hours before Christine and Sonia were found, another student failed to show up for work. Her name was Krista Hoyt, 18 years old, a part-time assistant in the sheriff's records office. Famous for never missing a shift, not even the day she had her wisdom teeth pulled. So when she didn't appear, her co-workers immediately requested a welfare check. 2 officers arrived at her apartment, front door locked, back sliding door locked. One officer crouched and looked under the curtain through a small 2-inch gap. His flashlight lit up something no human being should ever have to witness. Krista sat on the edge of her bed, slumped forward, unclothed, multiple stab wounds across her back, and missing her head. Her head had been placed on a shelf beside her, angled downward, as if watching her own body. Same tape residue, same method of entry, same staging, 3 victims. In roughly 48 hours. 3 lives gone in 2 days. When a predator moves that fast, it isn't panic. It's confidence. And Gainesville had no idea what was coming. When news broke, terror crashed over the city. Students fled campus. Parents drove hours to pull their children out of dorms. Those who stayed pushed mattresses into living rooms so they could sleep in groups. Hardware stores sold out of deadbolts, padlocks, stun guns, baseball bats, and real guns. Police blanketed the streets. Helicopters circled overhead. Even the National Guard arrived. But fear has a way of slipping through even the strongest barricades. And for 23-year-old Tracy Paulus, fear came with a promise from her roommate, Manny Taboda, a big, strong former football player. "If that killer comes here, he'll have to get through me first." A friend called Tracy and asked her to check in after class. Tracy said she would. She didn't. The next morning, the friend sent someone to check on her. Tommy, a mutual friend who lived nearby. Minutes later, her phone rang. It was Tracy's number. She answered. Tommy wasn't talking. He wasn't explaining. He was screaming. When police arrived, they found Manny in his stabbed repeatedly, still wearing his clothes. He had fought for his life. Down the hall, they found Tracy, posed on the edge of her bed, assaulted, murdered, arranged like the others. At this point, Gainesville's fear finally had a shape. A serial killer was hunting students, and he was getting better. Police needed a suspect, fast. They grabbed the most visible possibility, a mentally unstable student named Ed Humphrey. He carried knives, had violent outbursts, roamed the woods behind campus at night. When Ed was arrested for assaulting his grandmother, the murders stopped. For 1 minute, everyone believed they had their killer. But then the forensic tests came back. At each crime scene, the killer had left small traces of blood, likely from cutting himself during the attacks. Those samples tested as type B. Ed Humphrey's blood was type A. So he wasn't their guy. Humans do love convenient villains. Desperate, investigators turned to the FBI's VCAP system, searching for patterns nationwide. One case blinked back at them. An unsolved 1989 triple homicide in Shreveport, Louisiana. A grandfather, his 8-year-old grandson, and the boy's 24-year-old Aunt Julie. Julie had been assaulted and posed, her body wiped with vinegar. Doorframe marks matched screwdriver entry, and the killer's blood type? Type B. Just like Gainesville, news outlets broadcast the connection. And in Shreveport, a woman watching at home picked up the phone. "You need to look at someone named Danny Rolling." She described him, always carrying a huge knife, mentally unstable. Once told her husband he had a problem. He liked stabbing people. And right before leaving Shreveport, he said he was going somewhere with lots of beautiful young women. Police dug deeper. Rolling had endured an abusive childhood, had been kicked out of the military for instability. Spent much of the 1980s committing armed robberies. Then 3 months before the Gainesville murders, he shot his own father and disappeared. He matched the profile too perfectly. Then an officer remembered something odd. The same week the murders began, Gainesville had an armed bank robbery. The robber ran into the woods by campus, abandoning a duffel bag, a gun, a screwdriver, and an audio recorder. Overwhelmed by homicides, police never listened to the tape. Now they did. A male voice sang about being a mystery killer, discussed knife techniques, and finally said his name, Danny Rolling. The screwdriver matched door markings at the victim's apartments. Rolling's blood type was type B. He had been living in the woods behind the university the entire time, and when police went to arrest him, he was already in jail 40 miles away for another robbery. Rolling denied everything, for years. Then on the first day of his murder trial, he stood up and said, "I'm guilty." He confessed to all 5 Gainesville murders, and later to the 3 Shreveport killings. 8 victims. He wanted fame, to be a superstar like Ted Bundy. Funny, really. He could have made dance videos on TikTok for attention. We now know his method. He camped in the woods behind campus, watched windows, followed routines, chose victims at random, entered silently, used tape, staging, and cleanup to craft scenes meant to terrify. He didn't just kill, he performed. A performance Hollywood would later use for Scream. In 2006, Danny Rolling was executed by lethal injection. He offered no apology to the families watching behind the glass. No remorse, just a quiet hymn to himself until everything went still. Another monster gone, 8 lives stolen, and a city forever changed. So tell me, little mortals, which part of this story lodged itself deepest in your bones? The staging, the randomness, or that Hollywood turned real terror into entertainment? Drop your answer below, and if you survived this journey, like the video, subscribe. Rest while you can, little mortals. Next week, the Weirdos Marathon begins, Tuesdays and Fridays, and those creatures don't like to wait.